Let me ask you something honest. How many products have you tried? How many serums? How many supplements? How many promises in beautiful packaging that whispered, "This won't be different"? And yet, the hair still falls. The scalp still feels tired. The confidence still quietly erodes strand by strand, morning by morning. You stand in front of the mirror and you don't just see thinning hair. You see time passing. You see stress you've been carrying. You see something slipping away that feels deeply, personally yours. And here's what no one tells you. The answer was never inside a laboratory. It was growing in the soil. It has been growing there for thousands of years. Its name is rosemary. And what science has recently proven about this humble, fragrant herb will change the way you think about your hair, your body, and the forgotten relationship between human beings and plants. Before we talk about the science, and we will deeply, I want you to understand something. Rosemary is not a trend. It is not a hack. It is not something an influencer discovered last year. The ancient Egyptians placed rosemary branches in the tombs of pharaohs, not as decoration, as medicine, as a bridge between this world and whatever comes after. The Greeks burned rosemary before exams. Students wove it into their hair while studying because they believed, somehow, without microscopes or brain scans, that this plant sharpened the mind and strengthened the body from the head down. In the Middle Ages, rosemary was called the herb of remembrance. People carried it at weddings. They carried it at funerals. They pressed it into the hands of the sick and whispered prayers over it because they believed it carried life force inside its tiny, needle-like leaves. Now, you could hear all of this and say, "That's just folklore. That's just superstition." And I would understand. But here is what's extraordinary. When modern scientists finally turned their instruments toward this ancient plant, when they stopped dismissing what grandmothers and healers had known for centuries, they didn't disprove the old beliefs. They confirmed them, one by one, study by study. And the findings, particularly around hair health, are remarkable. Let's go beneath the surface. Your scalp, right now, as you listen to this, is a living landscape. It contains roughly 100,000 hair follicles. Each one is a tiny organ. Each one requires blood flow, nutrients, oxygen, and the right chemical signals to grow. When hair thins, when it falls prematurely, when it loses its density and strength, something has gone wrong in that ecosystem. Blood flow has diminished. Inflammation has crept in. Hormonal signals have shifted. The follicle doesn't die immediately. It shrinks, slowly, quietly, like a plant that's no longer being watered. Now, enter rosemary. Rosemary contains a compound called rosmarinic acid. It contains carnosic acid. It contains 1,8-cineol, camphor, and a constellation of other bioactive molecules that, together, do something almost architectural to the scalp. First, and this is critical, rosemary dramatically improves microcirculation. A study published in the journal Phytotherapy Research found that rosemary oil, when applied to the scalp, causes vasodilation, the widening of tiny blood vessels beneath the skin. More blood reaches the follicle. More oxygen. More nutrients. The follicle doesn't just survive. It wakes up. Think of it this way. Imagine a riverbed that has gone dry. The soil is cracked. Nothing grows. Now imagine the water returns, slowly at first, then steadily. Within days, green begins to appear. Life was never gone. It was waiting. It just needed flow. That is what rosemary does to your scalp. But it doesn't stop there. One of the primary drivers of hair loss, particularly pattern hair loss in both men and women, is a hormone called DHT, dihydrotestosterone. DHT binds to receptors in hair follicles and essentially strangles them. It shortens the growth phase. It miniaturizes the hair. Over months and years, the hair becomes thinner, finer, and eventually invisible. This is where the most famous study enters the conversation. In 2015, a clinical trial published in the journal Skin Med compared rosemary oil directly against minoxidil, the most widely used pharmaceutical hair loss treatment in the world. Let me say that again so it settles. They compared a plant against the gold standard drug. The study followed participants for 6 months. Both groups applied their respective treatments twice daily. The The researchers measured hair count, hair thickness, scalp irritation, and patient satisfaction. The results? After 6 months, rosemary oil produced the same increase in hair count as minoxidil. Statistically comparable. No significant difference. But here's the part that matters even more. The minoxidil group reported significantly more scalp itching, irritation, and discomfort. The rosemary group? Fewer side effects, better tolerance, greater satisfaction. A plant matched a pharmaceutical drug, and it did so more gently. Now, I want to be careful here. I am not telling you to throw away your prescriptions. I'm not making medical claims. What I'm doing is asking you to sit with this fact, to let it land, to ask yourself why no one ever told you this before. And there's more. Rosemary is a potent anti-inflammatory. Chronic, low-grade inflammation on the scalp, caused by stress, pollution, harsh products, poor diet, silently damages follicles over time. Rosmarinic acid has been shown in multiple peer-reviewed studies to inhibit inflammatory pathways at the cellular level. It calms the terrain. It restores the environment in which hair can thrive. And carnosic acid, another compound in rosemary, has demonstrated the ability to stimulate nerve growth factor. Why does that matter for hair? Because hair follicles are innervated. They are connected to your nervous system. When nerve signaling to the follicle is healthy, the follicle functions better. It cycles properly. It grows with intention. Rosemary doesn't force hair to grow. It creates the conditions in which hair chooses to grow. And that distinction is everything. But I want to take you somewhere deeper now, because this story isn't really just about hair. It's about something we've lost. Somewhere along the way, we began to believe that healing had to come from a factory, that if it didn't have a patent, it didn't have power, that if your grandmother used it, it was probably outdated. We replaced gardens with pharmacies. We replaced intuition with algorithms. We replaced the slow, patient wisdom of the earth with the fast, loud promises of industry. And we lost something in the trade. We lost trust in nature and in ourselves. Hair loss is not just a cosmetic issue. If you've experienced it, you know this in your bones. It affects how you see yourself, how you carry yourself into a room, how you feel when someone looks at you a moment too long. It is intimate. It is emotional. It is tied to identity in ways that are difficult to articulate but impossible to ignore. And so, when a plant, a simple, ancient, fragrant herb that costs almost nothing, offers real, scientifically validated support, that isn't just botany. That is an act of restoration, not just of hair, of faith, in the quiet intelligence of the living world. Think about this. A tree doesn't grow from its branches. It grows from its roots. You could trim the top, shape the canopy, polish the leaves, but if the roots are starving, the tree is dying. Your hair is no different. Every product that coats the strand is working on the branches. Rosemary works on the roots, on the blood flow beneath, on the inflammation you can't see, on the hormonal signals you didn't know were disrupted. It goes to the source, and that is what real healing always does. So, how do you actually bring rosemary into your life? It's simpler than you think, and that simplicity is part of its beauty. Pure rosemary essential oil. Look for Rosmarinus officinalis, therapeutic grade, can be diluted in a carrier oil. Jojoba oil works beautifully because its molecular structure closely resembles your scalp's natural sebum. 3 to 5 drops of rosemary oil into 1 tablespoon of carrier oil. That's it. Massage it gently into your scalp 2 to 3 times per week. Not aggressively, not in a rush. Slowly, with your fingertips, in small circles. Feel the warmth build. Feel the blood respond. This is not just application. This is attention. You're telling your body, I'm listening to you. I'm caring for you. I'm investing in you from the root. Leave it on for at least 30 minutes. Some people leave it overnight with a soft wrap. Then wash gently with a mild, sulfate-free shampoo. You can also steep fresh rosemary sprigs in hot water, let it cool, and use it as a final rinse after washing your hair. Your grandmother might have done exactly this. She was right. Now, patience. This is not a 7-day miracle. The hair growth cycle is long. A follicle that has been dormant needs time to re-enter its growth phase. Most studies show meaningful results at the 3 to 6 month mark. And this is where the real lesson lives. We live in a world that demands instant results. But nature does not operate on our schedule. It operates on its own. Growth is happening beneath the surface long before you can see it. Trust the process. Stay consistent. And let time do what time does. There is a quiet revolution happening. Not in laboratories. Not in boardrooms. Not on the shelves of expensive stores. It's happening in kitchens. On balconies. In small pots of soil where people are growing rosemary beside their morning coffee and remembering something ancient and true. That the earth provides. That has always provided. That the most powerful medicines are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes they are small and green and fragrant and waiting patiently on a sun-warmed hillside for someone to notice them again. Your hair is not just hair. It is an extension of your health, your stress, your story, your inner world made visible. And when you care for it with something real, something rooted, something honest, you are not just treating a symptom. You are rebuilding a relationship with your body, with the earth, with the ancient, unbroken thread that connects every living thing that grows. Rosemary, from the Latin ros marinus. It means dew of the sea, something born from mist and salt and stone and time. Something that has survived for millennia because it was always meant to heal. Maybe it was always meant to find you. If this spoke to something inside you, if you want to keep exploring the quiet wisdom hidden in the natural world, stay here. Subscribe to The Plant Mind. We go deep, we go slow, and we always go to the root. I'll see you in the next one.